super interesting to see LaMelo when he gets to his first playoffs. Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. I'm your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here today. So, today, we are talking about the Charlotte Hornets, and specifically LaMelo Ball, but as the big umbrella, we're talking about the Charlotte Hornets. So, why are we talking about the Charlotte Hornets? Well, the Charlotte Hornets had a pretty successful offseason, and there's kind of a lot to really break down about this team, but it really all revolves around LaMelo Ball. So if we go back to last year's draft, we look at the Hornets with that third overall pick. A lot of people didn't know how the top three were going to fall. We knew what the top three were going to be. Some people thought LaMelo should go number one. Some people thought that he should have gone to the Warriors, and he ended up being there at 3, and so it was a little bit of a shock, though, when the Hornets took him, even though it's consensus top 3, but many people were, mocking them to trade out of that spot if he was available because of Devontae Graham's campaign for Most Improved Player, the signing of Terry Rozier recently prior to that, and so a lot of people were mocking him to not go there, and what they ended up doing was they drafted him, and it was very mixed reviews. So it was either you loved the pick for him or you hated the pick for him, for the most part, was kind of how it was. To be honest, I didn't love the pick. I would have traded back, or, I think LaMelo probably should have gone number 2, but I would have had the Warriors trade back and somebody take him at 2. So it was good value, clearly, as we saw throughout the season, that, you probably got your franchise player at the 3rd overall pick, and you can't ask for much more, right? But yeah, there was a lot of criticism, a lot of praise for Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets for drafting LaMelo Ball, and most of that praise pretty much fell into their laps. You know what I mean? It revolved more around praise as the season continued and as we saw what he was able to do, and nothing but props to LaMelo for doing that. So now let's kind of go over his stats from last season. He had almost 16 points per game at 15.7. He had about 6 rebounds per game and 6 assists. So about 16, 6, and 6. Super good. And, he ended up winning Rookie of the Year with that. Personally, I would have given it to Anthony Edwards still. But, LaMelo was right there with him for that. And so he ended up getting it a little bit due to his popularity, I think. But, no hate on what he did last year. It was pretty good what he did last year. From 3 he shot about 35%. From the field he was about 43%, and I think the biggest concern there is free throws at only about 75%. I think you'd want to see that go up to show that he can be a consistent shooter continuing on, but it was his rookie season, so obviously after this next season we'll know a little bit more about where he's going to be in the NBA and if he can be a franchise player, which I think up to this point his brother Lonzo showed he isn't the franchise player that we thought that he was going to be prior to him coming into the NBA. Although still a very good player in the NBA, just one of those guys that didn't turn out to be a franchise player. So we're kind of trying to figure out, is LaMelo that guy? And so far it's looking like that. But last year on the Charlotte Hornets roster, right, not quite the roster you expected to push for a playoff spot. Obviously they ended up finishing 10th. They were in the play-in game, didn't do much, but you made the play-in game, right? In a season where you were coming off the 3rd overall pick, you almost made the playoffs, and there's not much better that you can do. So we saw Miles Bridges do pretty well. We'll have to kind of see how that progression really goes. A lot of his success was against lackluster teams, and so we'll have to see if that can continue. But I know Miles Bridges had a pretty good year, and then a lot of people didn't like, the signing of Gordon Hayward there. We thought, hey, you overpaid him. Why did you do this? and he pretty much, you know, showed he still kind of had it, right? You know, making 28 to 30 million, or 30, almost 32 million on his contract for a 4-year 120. We thought it was a lot to pay him at his age, but you know, he produced in this first year, and all you can hope as a Charlotte Hornets fan is that he continues to do that. Obviously his contract is going to creep up a little bit more, but for, you know, relative sake, it'll be about what it is right now. Terry Rozier had a pretty good year last year, earned himself a good extension. I think maybe a little bit of an overpay. I don't know if I want to pay Terry Rozier $27 million regardless of what he's doing, but that'll at least end off at the end of his prime, probably at about 31 years old. So, you know, he earned himself an extension, which has him locked up all the way through that 2026 season. So he'll be for the most part a career Charlotte Hornets player, other than his beginning in Boston. Even if he, you know, leaves after this, he'll be remembered for what he did in Charlotte, probably, and then, you know, the one good season he had in Boston as well. But yeah, so you got him an extension, and you pretty much are going to kind of run it back with some improvements. Obviously, we know Malik Monk, he went over to the Lakers. I do not believe they brought back Cody Zeller. I think you guys, the Hornets, let him walk after that $15 million contract, which was able to clear up some cap space for them. And then the biggest or the smartest thing almost that they did this last offseason was Devontae Graham, signing and trading him. Getting a first-round pick for Devontae Graham, who is pretty much, I mean, him and Rozier are very similar players. Like, they're going to play the same role for you, right? Whoever's better, you know, that's up to debate. You know, different people are going to have different opinions on that. I think Devontae's got higher potential, and he's a little bit younger, I do believe. Is he younger? No, Rozier's actually younger. Okay. But, you know, it's whatever. We're pretty much the same player role-wise on the team, and so to be able to kind of single that in on Rozier, keep him for the long term, and get yourself a good first-round pick for Devontae Graham, you couldn't have done much better in that trade, I don't think. And then, you know, you accomplish getting that first-round pick, and you go out and you take a couple flyers, right? You say, okay, we'll take the money from Mason Plumlee from the Detroit Pistons, and we'll bring him on over. And the nice thing about that is you didn't really have, you know, you don't really have a ton of centers on this team. So he's a solid guy that's going to come in, you know, as a Denver Nuggets fan, he's going to come in, he'll, you know, rebound, block some shots. He's not going to have an ego. He's going to come in there, play hard. You know, he's a decent playmaker for that center position as well. So if you have to start him, you know, he can be serviceable in that position if he ends up coming off the bench for somebody younger, like maybe a Vernon Carey, a Nick Richards, or even their recent draft pick, Kai Jones. Or even if you're going with maybe a smaller lineup with PJ Washington there at the 5, he'll be a good backup center as well. So, you know, a good veteran presence on the team, and to just, you know, pretty much get him for free to just kind of fill in that space works well for you. You know what I mean? I think they might have even gotten a second-round pick back in the deal. I do not remember off the top of my head. I think I can check that real quick, though. Yeah, no, I cannot figure out where that is. Oh yes, so they traded. Oh, and you got JT Thor back. So a guy that some people thought were gonna go maybe a little bit higher in the second round. You ended up getting him and Plumlee. So Plumlee's gonna play. He'll make use of that $8 million contract, and you know, he fills in the spot that you need on the team. And then you also took a flyer on Kelly Oubre, right? A guy who had a pretty down year this last year with the Warriors, and I think really dropped his stock. He was still able to get himself $12 million, so more than I thought he would have probably gotten based off of his season this last year. But, you know, you took a kind of a flyer on him. If he's not good, you have wings that can play, right? You have Gordon Hayward, you have Miles Bridges, you've got PJ Washington, you know, maybe Book Knight plays a little bit of the 3. You've got Jalen McDaniels and Cody Martin kind of at the end of the bench, along with JT Thor. So if he's not good, there's guys that are young that'll want the minutes. They're gonna fight for it, and you know, he's another guy that either he's gonna push the young players or he's gonna show some value, and maybe you can kind of acquire some value out of him. Personally, if I was them, if he, you know, at the trade deadline, if he's somehow worked his way into the starting lineup or is in 6-man conversations, if he's in six-man conversations, he's probably helping you win too. So at that point, I would keep him and maybe trade him in the next offseason. But if he's just having a good, decent season off the bench as your backup 3 or so, maybe you look to try and trade him to a contender or a playoff pusher in like the West or something, so that you can still push for that playoff position, but you can still try and get some value out of him. I'm sure that, like, I'm trying to think of some teams with money off the top of my head that would be able to go get him. And that is not really happening right now, but I'm sure that a team like the Grizzlies, if he's having a good season, you could send him to the Grizzlies. They have some good wings, but if he could maybe come in and be a starter for them, they would maybe send you something back for him. Maybe a team like the San Antonio Spurs that is probably going to be in a rebuild, but if they end up being decent and they don't have DeMar anymore and that 3 position is a little bit thin, maybe they would be willing to do that. I know they don't do a lot of trading, but you never know. Even a team like the Kings, right, where Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield are kind of your 3, like 2/3 and 3/4. Well, if you wanted more of just another 3 to be in there so that Buddy Hield can play more of the 2, because I feel like he's going to be forced to play a lot of the 3 this upcoming season with the addition of Davion Mitchell, because now you really have 3 pointish combo guards on your team, and Buddy Hield is like another, like, smaller, I guess a small forward, small forward, if that makes sense. So maybe, they would want to get him if they're trying to push for the playoffs to make it for the first time for De'Aaron Fox or something like that. Even a team like the Rockets, right, they could go get him. He's not an old player, so he definitely, leans into a potential trade where you can get back a little bit of assets and just improve your roster and improve your team. And so that's pretty good. And, I mean, just this team, they had a really good season this last year. You even bring in a veteran point guard in Ish Smith, who I feel like, he jumps around a lot of teams, but he's a pretty decent player. And this team, like, I'd expect them to come and do something. LaMelo's probably going to take another step if he averages over 20 points per game. I wouldn't be shocked if he is in even all-star considerations. That's a very high possibility, because this is a guy that, he's got that potential to be your franchise player, or he's got the potential to fizzle out. And, the more talent in the NBA, I think the better. I'm thinking that eventually we're going to be getting an expansion team, just because some of these teams, I mean, even some of these bad teams that aren't top of the end are starting to just fill with talent, and some of these guys just need minutes to be good. And so I'd expect, if COVID keeps, dies down in the next few years, we could see an expansion team come out. If you guys want to see a video on where I think an expansion team would go, make sure you guys leave a like, and I will do that for you guys, or leave a like and a comment, but I would do that for you guys if you want. But yeah, this Hornets team definitely has a lot of potential, a lot of young guys. I think they did a fantastic job in the draft, bringing in Book Knight as kind of your guy next to LaMelo, you know what I mean? That could move Terry Rozier into a 6-man role, which I think he would do very well in. How much he would want to do that, I don't know. And if you're paying over $20 million for a 6-man, I don't know. But maybe that leads you to trade him down the line or whatever. But I think Book Knight as that pickup right there was super, super solid. I'm trying to see. I cannot think of how tall he is off the top of my head. If he's able to play some 3, that would also be nice, because that means you can play Gordon Hayward a little bit at that 4, and you can lean into, that small ball lineups, because Miles Bridges and PJ Washington would be able to play the 5. Even, the recent pick of, what is his name? Kai Jones, he's going to be able to play that 5, and I think he's going to be a little bit more versatile, right? So if you're trying to lean into that small ball lineup, but it looks like a lot of this roster has those elements to it, really only having one, I would say, true center, or, a couple of true centers on the team, but one, like, true center that would play on most teams in a Mason Plumlee, leans me to believe that, their coach and their GM want to be able to move up and down the court, and, that's how LaMelo played in high school and thrived that way. To be honest, I don't quite know how he played overseas. I know he played well, and I think he ended up buying the team that he played for, but I don't know quite how his play style was over there. I'd assume it was a bit slower, as typically overseas ball is. But yeah, Bouknight, if he's able to, play the 3, also, he's about 6'5". LaMelo can slide on defense too, so you can play Bouknight, Rozier, and LaMelo together as your 1 through 3, and you can be, hopefully fine defensively. They have at least somewhat of the height and athletic potential to do it. And I think it was a super smart pickup for them because he's gonna. That creates a young backcourt going forward, right? Even if Rozier never even replicates what he did this season, right? Let alone get better or, whatever. Now kind of having a bit more of a defined role. Having Bouknight to develop next to LaMelo is just going to help your team in the long run, right? We know that throughout the 2010s and even, heading, further into the 2020s, guards matter. I think elite wings, probably you're going to place that over a guard, but guard duos have been super strong for the last 10 to 15 years, and so if you can get yourself a super solid guard duo and go from there, that you're doing something right. And I've been very impressed with how the Hornets have done, so I would I'm going to make my prediction here on what I think they're going to be able to do, and I think they're actually going to be able to make the playoffs this upcoming season, probably as a bottom 3 seed in the playoffs, so like a 6 through 8 or something. But I think that they're going to take that step. They're going to make the playoffs, and we are going to see a fun matchup in the playoffs with the Hornets, whoever they play, because I think that is going to be super interesting to see LaMelo when he gets to his first playoffs and how he kind of performs there. And I'm super excited to see what him and the Hornets can do this next season. So the NBA better watch out for what they're going to do. But yeah, this has been NBA Now. If you guys enjoyed, I'm your boy Dom. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe for more. It helps the channel grow a lot. I've really appreciated the support so far. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Peace out.